To understand abundance, we need to understand what power is and where power is, because it is power that is creative, which brings to us the abundance that we need and the abundance that we desire. In this world, money has become the symbol of power, and governments have become the symbol of authority. So both money and governments are inherently created for good, and at their core they are instruments to serve mankind. But they've been corrupted by fear, and so they become a false power and a false authority. In that way they've become idols we are worshipping as forms of authority and truth, or we are idolizing as forms of power to make us more whole, to make us more than what we already are, to give us value. And so because idols are not living, they are dead things. And so governments make laws against life. They are quick to attack life. They are quick to judge life. They are quick to condemn life. So we have police forces, and we have armies and military and bombs and guns. And we have a monetary system that is valued, where the money is valued more than the human being or more than nature and the animals and the creatures that we share the world with. And so in this way, all idols lead to death. And so money and governments need to be seriously looked at, re-evaluated and seen truly for what they are, so that we then have the ability to choose again. All the time we believe in them, and we believe that money is powerful and that governments are true authority and are there for our good, or they are serving us, when in fact they're not, they're enslaving us. Both are enslaving us. Then until we see that there is a choice, or until we see them for what they truly are, we won't know that there is a choice, because we are wanting them to be what we want them to be. It's better to look at things as they truly are than what we judge them to be, because judgment and perception are the same thing. We judge because we don't know, and perception is a not knowing, it's a choice. So it's not seeing reality, it's not seeing the truth, it's not seeing things for how they truly are. So we have to judge money, and we have to judge authority or governments truly. So it doesn't mean we attack them, it just means we let them be what they are, so that we then can choose again. And by choosing again, we will change them. If we attack them or we block them in any way, what we're doing is we're basically reinforcing what they are. We're making them more real to us, because we would only block something, we would only oppose something if we believe it's real. Once we realize that there is no reality there, then it's an easy choice to choose again, and choose for something that at the moment we don't know what the alternative is. Until we've gone inside, until we've seen who we are, then the alternative becomes very clear and very obvious, and the choice is easy then, because there is no choice. We're either choosing insanity or we're choosing sanity. We're either choosing hell or we're choosing heaven. We're either choosing sickness or we're choosing health, wholeness. So in that way, there is no choice. But until that point where we realize that they're not what we think they are, until we come to that realization, then the choice is taken away. We don't see a choice. We don't see that there is another option, that there is another source of power, and that there is another source of authority that is loving and basically is the the power of creation and the voice of creation and the laws of creation. And money and governments are really, because they've been corrupted by fear, they are denials of that. So we're not using them as we could use them. We're using them to defend ourselves and to attack. And we are using them as a winner and a loser. As in money, there's always a loser. There's always one who has more and one who has less. And this is all part of an unfairness and injustice. So until we use them through the laws of love and through the laws of unity and through the laws of wholeness, until then we will misuse them. And we're only going to know about these inner laws, this other reality, once we look inside. So what I'm sharing here comes to me in meditation, and like I explained in the previous video, that these meditations I've been doing for many years. I wake up at 3 in the morning, or sometimes earlier, sometimes a little later, and I go inside and I'm able to access a state of knowing within myself where I can see who I am, and I can understand my reality in relation to reality, not the reality of this world, but the reality of my being, which is a non-physical being. And so it is an understanding of myself at the level of truth that is God's reality. So in a way you could say that I see myself as God sees me, not as the ego or the mind in separation sees me, but as I am being directed to see myself through the visions or through the eyes of Christ, because we are all part of that. We're all part of the Christ, really. And the meaning of Christ is within us because God is within us. And so once I come to see this within myself, I have an ability to understand the world. And so these things I'm sharing come through this inner knowledge which I access, and I translate into something that I'm hoping is understandable to everybody else. It's not easy because the laws of reality are not the laws of this world, and so in reality we see ourselves different, and we understand ourselves different, and we understand the world different. And so if we truly want peace in this world, and we truly want freedom, and we truly want abundance, we must learn to see ourselves differently. And in that, we must be willing to look at what is false and not try and make the false true, or make what is not real. And so this understanding about money, and this also relates to governments. So learning to see money for what it truly is, and to see governments for what they truly are, and not trying to make them into something that they're not. And so the way I understand this is that I see now that what God created is life, and it was done through love. And so all that has life is valuable because it contains the love of a loving creator. And so everything that is living is valuable, and yet money is non-living. And so because it is non-living, it also lacks power, because power is where life is. What is living has power. What is living has wisdom, has knowledge, has love. So what is without life is without power, because the dead can be the cause of nothing. And so when we look for abundance or truth in what is dead, or when we look for authority in what is dead, we are left powerless, and we are left without meaning, because to look for understanding and knowledge in what is not living is to create a state of confusion within ourselves. And this is why money is so confusing, and why governments are also so confusing, because they lack knowledge, they lack truth, and they lack power. By being willing to look at money as it truly is, it opens up a doorway to understand where abundance actually does lie, and where true value lies, and where power lies, because all of those come together, because they're all part of love, and they're all part of life. And so what is living is within us, and this living being that is the source of our life is literally the meaning of Christ. And we are part of that oneness, and so we are part of the Son of God. And the Son of God has at his heart, or at the heart of itself, has its creator. And so God is within us, and this is what makes us all the same. This is what makes us all brothers and sisters. This is what makes us all equal, and why justice and fairness reign supreme in reality. And yet in this world there is only injustice and unfairness, and there are only winners and losers, because we're all seeing ourselves outside of reality. So to understand reality, to understand that God created life, and God did not create what is dead. And what is dead is really the meaning of evil, and to believe in death, and to believe in the opposite of love, because life is an aspect of love, and all that lives is created in love, in the loving mind of a loving creator. And so to understand that what is not living is part of an illusion, and yet governments and money have taken on a false power, because what is powerful must be with what is living, because what is living is with God. And so power of the universe comes from the Creator. And yet man believes in his forgetfulness. So man, in his unremembered state within the dream, believes that power is coming from outside himself. And it is this belief that money fulfills, and what governments fulfill. And so money and governments are intricately entwined with each other. And so governments are always desiring money. Governments are belief systems. They are shared beliefs. They are the beliefs of people who think the same thought. And so money is like this. It is a shared thought. It is not actually a thing. And so all the time we are believing in what is powerless and what is ultimately without value. All the time we are looking to save ourselves through those means, those false means, those illusions. We are leading ourselves to disappointment, because we cannot find power in those things. We cannot find abundance in those things, because they're simply not there. So looking for something where it doesn't exist is simply seeking for what cannot be found. And so this is really the goal of deception. The goal of evil is to seek for what is not there, and to seek for what cannot be found, because what this does is keeps the deception going. It keeps the illusion in place. It keeps the dream forever real, or forever seeming real. And we all know that money doesn't hold its value, and it is forever being lost, winning and losing. One day we've got it, next day we haven't, and there's never enough. And all the things that we attempt to buy through it lead to nothing. All the things that we own disappear eventually. They either break down or rot. They lose their value to us. So everything that comes to us through money loses its value. Whereas when you create abundance from within you, everything that comes to us holds its value forever within our minds, because we become grateful for the presence of an almighty power that is always giving us what we ask for. So even though things change and we might ask for different things, they don't lose their value to us, because the value is the power within us. It is the light within our minds. It is the presence of God within us. And seeking abundance and authority outside ourselves always leads to confusion, because there isn't any authority outside ourselves, and there isn't any abundance outside ourselves. And so we're always left with never enough. We're always left searching. We're always left wanting. And something else that we can consider here is that money, because it is outside of the mind of God, and so it is not something that is to be shared. So in this way, it is something that is being created by governments. It is being created out of nothingness. So governments are the only ones who create money. They're the only ones who print money. And so it costs a few cents to print $100 bill. And they sell that $100 bill to a bank. And so they pocket more than 99% of the value of that $100, because it's cost them a few cents to print that $100 bill. They have kept the rest. And this goes into the coffers of the state. Now, they give it to the banks, who are then empowered to charge interest and therefore keep it in a state of debt. So the banks now charge interest on the money that they loan out to people. Now, they loan it out, and they are given by law the ability to loan out 12 times more than they have. So if you deposit a $100 bill into a bank account, they can legally loan out 12 times more than that. And they charge interest on that. When you loan money from a bank, you're paying interest in it. But it's coming from the money that is being deposited by someone else times 12. So the banks are creating money in this way. And so money is being controlled through the government's laws, which the governments create laws and impose these laws by force of a justice system which is basically unjust, and a police force that enforces laws through the threat of violence and torture and imprisonment. And in this way they control money. But because of the interest that is charged on money, accumulated interest, after 100 years, nearly all of your money has lost its value. So that means that when we die, when we leave the world, we pass on our inheritance to our children, and they pass it on to their children. But it's nearly completely devalued within 100 years. So our children, although they might receive a portion of our money, and after tax has been paid on it, it's devalued so much. And so this way it keeps everybody in a state of poverty, so that our children and our children's children do not inherit what they should inherit. And so we're always left having to work to survive, because everyone is having the value of their money depreciated. So accumulated interest works like this. It might just be a few percent a year, but over a period of 100 years, it has grown to a point where it has now basically consumed all the wealth that is in that money. And so we're leaving our children and our grandchildren nothing, just as we have been left nothing by our parents and our ancestors. So the governments control this to keep everyone in poverty and to keep us working, and therefore keep us paying taxes and keep us in a state of slavery. And this is a very important point about controlling money, because it keeps us in a state of poverty, it keeps us in a state of loss, it keeps us in a state of having to work, and this keeps us from having the time and the peace and the safety to discover who we are. So when we're always having to survive and work to survive, we simply are not in a state of mind to go within and discover our true self. And this is the plan of evil, is to keep us, or to keep the Son of God in a state of forgetfulness. And this is the goal of the monetary system as it is presently being controlled. And the various arms of government, like the media, they also are constantly teaching us to value objects and to look outside ourselves for value and to look outside ourselves for meaning. So we chase objects and we chase positions of power, we chase jobs of value. But none of these things can give us what we want from them, and because they all lead us to nothingness, they all lead us to disappointment. No matter how great our job seems, it leads us to nothing. It leads us to disappointment. And everyone who knows, who spent their life working and accumulating wealth, loses it at the end of their life and becomes disappointed by all the goals they've achieved, because they've all led to nothing. And also what happens when we spend our lives chasing money, because it does create a state within us which is lacking in peace and lacking in true value and true abundance. It creates a state of greed within us, because we're always chasing for more and for more. And this actually perverts our mind. So our minds become perverted. They become distortions. They become distortions of truth and distortions of reality. And as our love for objects grow, so our mind becomes more perverted. And so often you find that those who are in positions of extreme wealth or in positions of power, as power is seen in this world, they are usually perverted and their desires become perverted. And this is often seen through sexual perversions, not just the perversions of having to have, the most expensive of everything and the biggest of everything, but actually sexual perversions as well. And so often we find those people who have spent their lives accumulating money, they become perverted in their thoughts and their actions. So we only take because we believe in the separation, whereas love is a state of giving. So it doesn't take, it only gives. And so when we are in a state of taking always, we are seeing ourselves more acutely separated, so we are always willing to take more for ourselves and leave others with less. And so this is really just a part of an evil concept in the world, an evil belief that we are all separate, and the deception that we are all separate. But this is simply not true. And so the abundance that we look for through money is a perversion. It's a perversion of reality and a perversion of truth. And it's a perversion of love. And the difference between giving and taking, the difference between love and money, is that love gives because it values what it gives, but money takes. And so when we are trading with money, when we are using money, we are trying to get the best deal for ourselves. We are trying to pay the least or give the least and receive the most, thereby making sure that we gain more than the other person, and therefore we are the winners and they are the losers. So we value the object more than what we're giving them. So we value the object more than the money we're giving them. So we're giving them less and we want more in exchange. And this is not a part of love. This is a part of deception. That is not abundance at all. Is actually a poverty. It leads to poverty because it is not for everybody. And so there is only winners and losers in this world, and people who take and do not give, because we have been taught to think like this. We have been taught to think that we are not part of each other. And wars and all our weapons and our borders and our countries and all these things are but reflections of how we believe we are all apart from each other and we are all separate from each other, and we don't value each other. And so everyone is always chasing money because it is illusionary, and so it cannot be grasped. We cannot truly have it because what is not there cannot belong to us because it's not there. And so we're always searching for money, we're always trying to survive. And this is the same with governments. We're always being deceived into believing things about ourselves which aren't true. We are always creating wars and dramas and problems for ourselves because we are believing in a false authority. And the false authority lacks wisdom, because wisdom comes from life. Wisdom is part of God's mind, and yet governments, like money, are not part of God's mind. And so what is not a part of God's mind was never created, and so it only exists within an illusion. So instead of asking for money, ask for the power of God, because the power of God is within you. And money is not in you, money is outside of you, and so you're always searching for it. But the power of God is within you, and so it is yours, it is ours, it's a part of who we are. And so we're asking really just for what is ours and what has been given to us already. And this power is the power of creation, and this brings to us everything that we want and desire and need. And so there is no difficulty in the universe or the mind of God supplying us with everything we need or want. So don't ask for money, ask for the power of God, and make that your mantra. Because the mantra of the world has basically been to worship an idol. We are all wanting money, we're all desiring money, or we're desiring objects. We're desiring things outside ourselves. Things that aren't living, things that aren't real. But what's inside us is living and it is real, and it's within everyone else. So it speaks to everyone else. So everyone else becomes part of our abundance and brings to us they become the messengers and the givers of the gifts of the universe. So we've all asked the universe and asked in prayer to God or the Creator for things, and we've all experienced disappointment because we don't always feel that we get what we ask for. But what we don't understand is that we are actually all part of each other. There is within us the same Creator, the same God. It is the same life force. So when we're asking for something that is going to hurt us, then it is not given. When we're asking for something that is against somebody else, that is going to hurt someone else, then we're asking insanely for ourselves, because if we ask to hurt someone else, then we're asking for us to experience pain. And so the thing is not given. But when we ask truly for abundance for ourselves, we are asking for everyone else as well. And so this is the true meaning of abundance. It is not for us alone, it is for everybody. And so when we ask truly for abundance, it is not limited to us alone. And so it is always answered. And even when we ask insanely for things, thinking that we want them, but when we realize in time that those things have actually caused us pain or caused us hurt or caused us suffering, then we realize that we actually didn't want those things after all. We've all done this. We've all, an example is we've entered into a relationship. We really thought that we wanted the person, and the relationship went terrible, and we came out of it feeling broken and shattered and realized we didn't want it at all. And this is the same with objects, with things. We buy something or we have something, and then it becomes a burden to us. We buy a big house, but it becomes a burden. We can't keep it up. There's just too much. So things aren't always given to us, but only because they're going to hurt us. And this needs to be understood, because we do ask for things that are going to hurt us. And I'm sure we've all heard of the law of attraction, that what we desire comes to us, what we think about comes to us. But this is only true when what we are desiring is for our good. And so if it is not for our good, it simply does not appear. Because the mind of creation, the mind of God, is a mind of love. It is a loving mind. And love is for everyone. So abundance answers everyone equally. It does not give more to one person than another. So it is for everybody. So when we're asking for something that is outside of the law of love, and is therefore outside of the mind of God or outside of the mind of Christ, if we are not thinking with the mind of Christ, then we do not receive what we desire, because it is going to hurt us. And so money bypasses this. So we work for money. We have to work for it. So we sacrifice our lives for it. And in this way, money serves this purpose. It brings to us through taking. So because love is a part of giving, so it gives fairly to everybody, to everyone. But money is a part of taking. So it is a trade. It is always something we value less in exchange for something we value more. So for a moment we value the money less than we value the object we want. And so we trade it. So we're trading for something of less value for something of more value. And so this is not a part of love. This is actually a part of the opposite of love. For the universe, everything is possible. To the power of God's mind, everything is possible. And because we are part of that mind, we are part of that oneness, there is no difficulty in bringing to us what we need and what we desire, if it is there if we are desiring it, or if we are wanting it, and it is not going to hurt us. The problem with chasing money, the problem with desiring money, is that it is hurting us, and so that's the reason it doesn't come to us. It only comes to us when we take it from other people. This is why there is no one really making money. Everyone else is taking money. We're never actually having it, whereas the power of God is within us, and so it is ours. We already have it, and it is this that will bring everything to us that we want and we need and we desire, if our desires are not hurting us. What has life is a part of God's mind. We are not our bodies, and the world that we see is not our reality. It is just the reality that the body was designed to show us. And yet the body cannot actually see, it can only perceive, and perceiving is a choice. And yet seeing is a part of truth, and being a part of truth, it means it's a part of reality, because reality and truth are one. So when we see what is not there, we are seeing what is not true, and we are seeing what is not real. And so everything that the body does show us and reveals to us through our senses is not the totality of reality. Our reality is something that is non-physical. Our being is non-physical. Life is non-physical. And it is this that is powerful, and it is this that brings to us everything that we ask for and desire because of love, because creation is a state of love, creation is a state of having, creation is a state of being. And yet the body is a denial of this. The body denies this because the body sees separation from this. It sees a world that is outside of heaven. It sees a world that is unloved. It sees a world that is not within the mind of God. And so the story of Adam and Eve falling from the Garden of Eden is really but the story of Adam and Eve falling asleep and eating of the apple. The symbology of eating of the apple is really but like taking an anesthetic to make us fall asleep. And in that state of darkness, in that state of sleep, we dream, and we dream of worlds that do not exist, and we dream of illusions that are not real. And so this is what the body reveals to us. It reveals to us a world that does not exist in reality, and it does not follow the laws of reality, because the body denies reality. It sees what is not there. And so when we use our minds and our minds are trapped within the body, we believe we are the body and we believe that the world is real, then we are thinking with a limited mind. We're thinking with a mind that has been imprisoned by the body. And so meditation really takes our awareness out of the body and takes us into a state of higher knowing. And so what I'm sharing, this information, what I'm sharing, has really just come to me through meditations where I can reach inside myself and I can see a reality that is not of this world, and I can see a reality that is not of this body. I can see that I'm not this body, and the world is not what I think it is. And so the knowledge that comes from this state of awareness is not the same. It does not follow the same laws that the world follows, and so it's difficult to translate When I'm in meditation, I have completely clear visions and completely clear understandings, and they're fully understandable. I know for certain they're real. I know it's reality. I am without doubt of what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling. And I know it's true because all the fears disappear. Any fear or doubt in my mind completely disappears because it gets answered immediately. And so I know for certain that what I'm seeing and what I am being, the knowledge that I'm being led to is who I am and is what reality is. And so translating that back into a language and then trying to explain that even to myself with, even during the day once I come out of the meditation, it's very difficult to translate that back into an understandable concept, even for myself, So I have to really kind of like go back inside almost and come to that place of understanding at a more shallow level. And so even trying to explain it here is not easy because I'm using words and symbols that can be so easily misunderstood, can be used to mean something completely different. When we are perceiving and we're not seeing, then we're perceiving our choices. So depending on every person in the world, we're going to see something different because that is what the body does. And so even saying something can be interpreted in many, many, many different ways. You've only got to look at spiritual scriptures or religious scriptures like the Bible. They can be completely misread and misinterpreted. They can be taken to mean horrific things. They can be completely turned upside down because the person that is interpreting them is at a level which is not able to understand those meanings. And so it's almost like an undoing process. It's a slow undoing of beliefs that we were taught were true, but they simply aren't true. And so we have to undo those beliefs. We have to surrender those beliefs. Ultimately, we're going to come to a place where we realize that we actually don't understand what the world is and the meaning of everything. We actually don't know what the meaning is. If you think about a chair, to us it means a chair, but to an ant it doesn't mean a chair, and to an elephant it doesn't mean a chair, and to a bird it doesn't mean a chair, and to anything else in the world a chair is completely meaningless. But to me, when I look at a chair, I give it the meaning of a chair, but in truth it's not that. I had this kind of inner meditation just the other day where I could see that I actually didn't know the meaning of anything, and the chair came up. I looked at the chair and I realized that I actually don't know the meaning of this. I've learned the meaning and I believe what I've learned, but just because I've learned it doesn't make it true. And so we must always remember that those who taught us what we know also started from a place of forgetfulness, and so everything they've been taught was taught to them by someone who also started from a place of forgetfulness. And so we've just been regurgitating this same narrative, but it's not necessarily true. And so when we start to question who we are and we start to question the world, we open ourselves up to look outside of the box, look outside of the prison that the mind trapped in the body has become. And this is a very fearful thing in many ways, but it is the path of liberation, because the knowledge of who we are literally is the meaning of salvation. It is the way to freedom. It is the way to power, and it is the way to abundance. And so chasing money is but denial of who we are, because what we're saying is that money's powerful and I need money and I must have money. Money's going to make the future better. But we are sacrificing our lives for the pursuit of a false power. And this is really the goal of evil. This is the egoic mind, the mind in separation, the mind that doesn't see wholeness. It doesn't see that we are part of a oneness. It doesn't see that we are the meaning of Christ. The meaning of Christ is within us, that we are that. We are all part of each other. And so all the time we're seeing ourselves as separate from each other. We are willing to be cruel, and we are willing to be unkind, and we are willing to be unfair and unjust. And all these meanings are really the meanings of hell and the meanings of evil. And so even money and governments, although they are untrue and they are deceptions, and in that way they are evil, you must remember that there actually is no thing apart from God's creation. So that whatever is happening within the dream, if it's a nightmare and it's an evil nightmare, the truth is that it doesn't actually exist. And so even though we could say, or I can say, that governments are evil or that money is evil, ultimately there's nothing wrong in either of them. It's just the fact that we are being deceived by them that is evil. The person, the politician, or the rich man, or the poor man, or whoever it is, there's nothing wrong in either of them. They are still the Son of God. They are still the meaning of Christ. They still have God at the core of their being. They are life and God and love are part of a oneness. So even though we might be thinking insanely, we are still who we were created to be, and we are still who we are created to be. And so evil is not a person, it's a non-living entity. To gain power back and to gain abundance and security back, it's a very simple thing that we have to do, is that we have to go inside and we have to see who we are, so that we understand who we are, we understand who everyone else is, and we understand what the universe is and what the world is. And that understanding fosters love and fosters gratitude and fosters peace. And peace and power come together because God is a state of being that is powerful and is in complete peace. So when we speak about the peace of God is not apart from power. The power of God is found in peace. And so once that comes into your mind, because you realize who you are, then things just appear for you. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to try and achieve anything. You don't have to sacrifice your life to be something you're not. You just have to be who you are. And that is enough, because that is where value is, that is where power is, and that is where abundance is. I've had many, many years now, 25 years of not working for a living. I've been completely free for many years before then, actually. I had an amazing job that I never thought I would not want to do. And it gave me access to live free and to live with enough money for everything that I needed. And eventually, at some point, after actually a revelation that happened to me during one of my jobs, where I realized like the top of my head blew open and my awareness shot out into the universe, and expanded at the speed of light, and I realized that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. And so after this revelation ended, it lasted some moments, I just thought, I'm always going to be doing this work, and this work is amazing. I was a photographer. I was doing beautiful commercial work, and I always thought, this is it. I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, and I'm sorted for life. But within 6 months, I'd closed down my studio, and I was traveling through Africa with a bag on my back, and I'd left my home, and I'd left my business and my photography, and I started a journey that 25 years later, I've still not worked. And yet we still have a beautiful home, we live in a beautiful place, we have everything we need. There is always enough, more than enough. If I need something, we buy it. If we have no limitations on that. But we do live simple life. So I realized after many years, actually only in the last couple of years, I realized that I could not have reached inside myself in these meditations if I had been working, and I'd been busy, and I'd been inspired to do all those kind of things, that the working environment involves. As much as they can be fun and they can feel fulfilling, at the end of the day, they are also distracting us. They are distractions so that we don't look inside, so that the illusion of this world remains strong and fixed. And it is only when we enter into a place of peace and a place of stillness, which comes from not working, which comes from having all the things we need taken care for us, so that we don't have to work to survive, that we don't have to struggle. And so that gives us the opportunity to enter into a state of peacefulness within ourselves and within the world, and that helps us to journey inside ourselves and go deeper. So the working environment, everyone is busy trying to work to make money, but all we're really doing is avoiding the inner journey. And this is the goal of the ego, and this is also the goal of deception. The goal of evil is basically to keep the Son of God in a state of forgetfulness. And so all the time we are busy chasing money and working for a living and doing all these things, we are not in a state of complete peace. And so we cannot access this knowledge inside ourselves, because that knowledge can only come when we are in a state of peace. Some people can have access to these realizations through various means. Some revelations happen just spontaneously. Some people use plant medicines. I personally have also used plant medicines many times. But what I've discovered is that revelations and even plant medicines, they are temporary states, and you soon lose them. Doesn't matter how many plant medicine ceremonies you do, you still lose them. It can certainly help shift your life, but the real work comes from going inside yourself in a state of stillness, in a state of peace, where you are accessing a state of knowledge within yourself. And that only comes when I personally found what pushed me into this was I was going through a lot of fears that were terrifying me for a while, and it became psychotic and depressing and very dark and hellish. And this went on for a number of years, and it pushed me deeper and deeper into myself. And basically these fears were coming to me because of money, because I wasn't working, I wasn't earning money, I wasn't doing the things that the rest of the world does. And so I was really questioning my sanity. Like, I was receiving these, this understanding that I don't have to work, I don't have to do these things, this is all part of an illusion. But everything in the world was telling me that I do have to work and I do have to survive. And so I was really questioning my sanity. And because I had a child and because I have a wife, it was just bringing up a lot of guilt and a lot of fear and a lot of shame. And so yet I still didn't respond to the fears as if they were real. I still kept going inside because I knew ultimately that the working environment and the world that we are creating, that mankind is creating, is insane, it is dysfunctional, it is closer to hell than it is to heaven, that there is complete poverty in this world that is unnecessary, there's suffering in this world that is happening. And so, it was clear to me that, just being well adjusted to an insanely sick society is not a measure of good health. And so I kept going into the fears. I was being guided to just keep going into the fears. And so that's what I did for many years. And I would just go into the fears, and it would happen on every morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd wake up and I would go into these fears. And sometimes it was horrible, it was terrifying, it was nightmarish. But eventually I managed to come to a place where I could see myself. And then once I saw myself, the fears disappeared completely. They would come back again, sometime later, a few days later, something would trigger them, usually with money, usually with finances, usually with a threat of some kind from the outside. But eventually, as my understandings grew, because what I was seeing was gaining in. There's like levels within us, we understand things at different levels. And so as I kind of reached higher up the ladder, so to speak, I was seeing things that I couldn't understand before. And so that was answering the questions even more clearly. And so now I can reach inside myself and I can see myself, and I can see the meaning of reality. It doesn't mean I see God, or it doesn't mean I see anything it's a different kind of seeing. It's a different kind of knowing. It's not a body knowing, it's not a physical knowing, it's not a physical seeing. It's something completely different. But it's full of wisdom, and it's full of grace, and it's full of peace. And I know when I'm in there because I'm just surrounded by peace, and I can just feel the presence of peace all around me and the power. And so once I'm in that state, then the wisdom comes, and it comes depending on what I'm going through at that time. So it answers those questions. And so the fears just get answered and they just disappear. And so these videos, what I'm doing is really trying to put them into words so that I can share them to help others navigate their way through a very dark and depressing world where there is a lot of insanity, there's a lot of injustice, there's a lot of poverty and sickness and suffering in the world. And there's a lot of ego worship going on. There's a lot of body worship going on. Yeah, chasing money is one of them. Believing in governments is another. Believing in a false authority, believing in a false power. These are all part of this. The meaning of who we are is an eternal being. It's a being of immense beauty and joy and light. I see myself now more as the light within the mind of God, a thought within the mind of God. That's kind of like the closest I can bring myself to understand or to explain it, is that we are the thoughts within the mind of a loving Creator. And so we are the light within the mind of a loving Creator. And that light has has chosen to fall asleep, and this is the story of Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden. And so we've chosen to fall asleep, and we're in a state of forgetfulness in this world. We was all born here in a state of forgetfulness, and we're all living in these bodies in a state of forgetfulness. And so we're teaching ourselves everything we think we know or we think is real, because we are creating a world for ourselves that we are creating, that was not created by God. And so money and government's all part of this man-made creation, but it's not real. It's the illusion within the dream. And so awakening from this dream is really the goal of humanity, is to awaken from this dream and to bring the dream back to a state that is closer to heaven, so that the bridge between this world and heaven is easily crossed, and therefore the fear of death disappears, because we realize that we do not die and we are forever loved and forever taken care of, and everything is given to us in the universe. Everything is ours. We are created for that. And then once we become aware that we are that, then the world changes its meaning. It becomes completely harmless. It becomes a place of absolute beauty. It becomes a reason for joy. It becomes a blessing instead of a curse.